Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into our abstract as part of SAEM's Virtual Academic Assembly 2020. My name is Dave Wilson and our project is a comparison of SLOs for EM residency applicants. I don't have any financial conflicts of interest to disclose. Before I begin, a quick overview of SLOs for those of you listening that might not know the first thing about them. The standardized letter evaluation was designed to be an objective tool to better evaluate EM-bound applicants. So the SLO replaces your classic narrative letters of recommendation, and it's the most important part of the application packet for those students pursuing EM residencies. Now, for the purposes of this presentation, beyond that, I need you to know two things about SLOs. First, it gives us some objective data, and that comes in two big places. The first is 7 questions called the qualifications for EM. That's 7 different questions that rank students as top third, middle third, or bottom third in those categories. And the second is part C of the SLO, the global assessment, that asks 2 questions that rank students in the top 10%, top third, middle third, or bottom third. The first of those questions is the comparative rank compared to all other EM-bound students that you know. How does this person compare? The second is where do you think this person will fall on your institution's rank list? So that's the objective data we get from the SLO. The second thing I need you to know about the SLO is that generally students are advised to get 2 of them. This means doing 2 EM rotations. So typically, this means completing 1 home rotation and 1 away rotation. And so this sets up our question. We have this objective measurement tool, and we have 2 different measurements. So our question that we aim to answer is there a difference between the objective data and the SLOs comparing the home and the away? And the thought is that there probably is. That away rotation might be a little bit more objective, while that home rotation, they might be a little bit more invested in you matching. And that's backed up by the program director survey. It consistently ranks the away rotation SLO as the most important part of the application. So we go about answering this question with looking at 3 outcomes. The first is a composite score of those 7 questions in Part B, the qualifications for EM. The second is looking at that comparative ranking, that first question in Part C, and the third is looking at that estimated rank list placement, question 2 in Part C. Now for those last 2 outcomes, we do something pretty clever. Instead of using ordinal numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4 ranking, we use the percentiles they represent, 10, 33, 67, 100. And that's so that we can calculate the magnitude of the difference between the 2 outcomes, if there is any at all. Now a little bit about our data pool. We had a total of 1,286 applicants. Of those, 721 were U.S. seniors that had at least 1 home and 1 away SLO. So all this data is for an N of 721. And here's what we found. When you look at that composite score of those qualifications for EM, there is no significant difference between the home SLO and the away SLO. Again, when you look at that comparative rank, there's no significant difference between the home SLO and the away SLO. Now, when we look at that estimated rank list placement, there's a little bit of cause for excitement. We found, on average, students get about a 7% increase in that estimated rank list position from their home institution. Now that sounds really great to me. I would love to bump up 7% of spots on a rank list. But we also need to be a little careful here. When we're ranking students as top 10%, top third, middle third, or bottom third, 7% of a difference isn't coming through for every applicant. So it's really hard to say how real that difference is when looking at the SLOs. So overall, when looking at this data, I guess what I'm saying is that the objective data from the home SLO and the away SLO doesn't vary all that much. Now, if you're really up to date on your SLO literature, you might point out this study that was published last year came from UC Irvine. And they asked the same question, but they came up with a different answer. They said that there is a difference between the home and away SLO. And so you might think that that puts us at odds, but our findings are actually consistent with theirs. They found that if you combined the estimated rank list placement and that comparative rank, there was a difference. So what we have effectively done is we've isolated the difference and defined the magnitude of that difference. Now, our study does have some limitations that I'd like to quickly point out. First, that this was a single institution study, though our total applicants did represent about 60% of the EM applicant pool. Second, we didn't take into account geography of the away rotations. We didn't take into account whether the letter writer was an individual or a committee letter. And we defined a home rotation as one that is available to all students of a specific school and doesn't require an application to be accepted. And this definition might differ from that of some program directors. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. My email and Twitter are below. And thanks so much for listening in.